Diced Onion, a Warrior podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Angelo Fioris. That's Mike Haggerty. And we welcome you to another look at this incredibly fantastic show. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying our work, please. I always seem to ask that at the end of the show, Mike. And my guess is not a lot of people are making it to the end of shows. So let's ask now in the front.
Can't hurt to ask. And there's no wrong answer there.
That's right, Mike. We're halfway through season 3 now when we complete this show, and we've only got 5 more of these.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have 10 more at some point.
I'm not holding out much hope as actors move on with their careers and start scoring other gigs, and the most recent season becomes not so recent anymore. I start to find myself losing hope that the powers that be that go to work in a necktie every day make the right decision. I don't hold out a lot of hope. You know, Mike, we've been in the media industry a long time. Those guys that wear the shirt and tie to work don't make the best decisions.
No, not always, but
not ever, most of the time.
Stranger things have happened, so let's keep hope alive. Maybe.
Season 3, episode 5, Whiskey and Sticky, and all the rest can wait. You know, just by the title, you know who uttered that phrase in this episode. That makes it very funny. Original air date, July 13, 2023. And the scene opens up pretty much kind of like a continuation of where we left off, right? Mei Ling getting taken away by the police to end the episode. And now we see her going through the booking process. We see her getting deloused. We see her getting sprayed. It's a very humiliating experience, a la John Rambo in a sense.
Which, funny you say that, I actually was just watching the original Rambo yesterday, as a matter of fact.
I saw that it was on.
Yeah, honestly. We see a little bit of a parallel here because there's similar things happening to young June at the same time.
Right. Because as she's going through the booking process, he's going through his own process, young June, where we left him. He was getting loaded up into the paddy wagon, and now we see him getting dumped out of the paddy wagon, and it becomes evident very quickly as to what's his fate is.
Yeah, and he's running around. He's insisting he is American, which he is.
Yeah, his fate is that he's going to be shipped back.
Yeah,
to China with all the other castaways.
Yeah, and so to me, what I found interesting about this scene was that for the first time, at least that I could think of, that young June is in a position of vulnerability.
Right.
The fact that he's the head of a Tong doesn't mean anything here at this moment.
Yeah, his status is irrelevant, and he's trying. You could see the desperation when it dawns on him. No, American, San Francisco born. The cop or the officer, immigration officer, whatever you want to call him, he ain't having it. Back in line.
And same thing for Mei Ling. She, again, the head. We see the two heads of the two Tongs, and they're both in the position of their power doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, amazing. And this has got to be, we'll talk about it later on, what the implications are for the heads of the two largest Tongs in Chinatown being locked up, what that means for the political scene going on in this show. But that is where the opening scene ends, with young June getting back in line. And then we come back from credits, and it's Lee Young, and he is speaking to the council. And he, in a sense, is looking to figure out a way to get Mei Ling out of her mess. But the council has lost faith in her, haven't they, Mike?
Yeah, and they make a good argument because really, if you're thinking about it from their point of view, she's used all their money to
1/3 of it. I might add.
1/3 of it.
Yeah, we don't know that dollar amount, but it's revealed to be fully 1/3 of the Long Z's coffers, Mike. That's heavy duty.
Yeah, and she's trying to venture out into the pond, as they say.
Yep. And they're essentially saying that, reading between the lines, that it's time for her to go.
Yeah. And I don't know if maybe there's a little bit of misogyny in there too, but either way, they do have a point. She's been playing with house money, and they're a little bit annoyed because that's their money too. It should belong to the Tong.
And it's not house money. It's not like it was extra. It was their operational stash. And so and with everything going on, Mike, when you think about their position with the Bulls cracking down and the new era of this new chief, who is really Chief Atwood, who's really into coming down hard on the Chinese, now is probably not the time to expose yourself financially the way she did. So there's a lot of concern. Lee Young, though, he scoffs, right? He no interest. He's going to find a way to bail her out. But then his trusted confidant, Con Pak, has a few words to say, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I've been getting the feeling, and I'm sure we all have through the season, that Kong Pack is probably not really on board with Mei Ling, but he just sees the way the wind was blowing, and maybe now perhaps he sees the way the wind is blowing again. Now Lee Young obviously is not going to be able to think objectively about this because that's his girlfriend, that's his lady,
That's
and he
right.
wants to get her out. So, and that's his issue, and we see Kong Pack is sort of starting to sort of break that ice a little bit, like not not really pushing, but just sort of saying, hey, here's how
You're,
it goes.
he did say you're complicit. So because they say their position is that if she made that move, you must have known, making you complicit. So a little bit of that gives you some insight into what the council's thinking is, which is, yeah, we're down on Mei Ling, but we ain't so hot on Lee Young either right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I think it was Cotton Pack had an interesting line where he said, it'd be better to have a leader that served the Tong instead of the other way around.
Yes, he did. He did say that. Good catch. And that is where that scene ends. And it's a lot of food for thought for Lee Young, but I think his little head does a lot of the thinking here over the next few scenes. Okay.
Mm.
We're now at the deportation center, and Buckley is there talking about the benefits of this deportation center, right? It's a rather uninspiring speech, though, Mike. He's got no, a good politician has a way to make a point and get the people behind his words. And Buckley seems to be yawning his way through what could be an opportunity for him to snag some votes.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of charisma. That much is clear. Someone like Bruce Lee, for example, that was someone that had that sort of it factor, that charisma. Right. You can't teach it. You either have it or you don't. And Buckley doesn't have it.
No, even though Miss Archer, his his new advisor, I guess you want to call her, she smiles approvingly, and Buckley ends pretty much with we'll send them back where they came from. I'm pro Exclusion Act, but again, a lack of enthusiasm amongst the constituency.
Right. Yeah. He's not charismatic, and he knows it.
That's right. And then we learn a little bit more as his assistant comes up, the guy I keep calling Andrew Dice Clay, and he lays out, I don't even know the character's name, Mike, and maybe that's ignorant on my part to not even bother to look it up, but it doesn't matter to me. But anyway, his information was that Thayer has mitigated that threat of the planted story from a week ago, and Buckley doesn't want to hear it, and in fact threatens him with his job.
Yeah, Buckley says basically, this is your problem, deal with it.
Right.
Or in so many words, like, I got my job, you got your job.
We now switch over to Assam and Hong. It's a very quick scene, but they're essentially making a plan to spring Young June.
Yeah, and I would imagine that it would be especially hard in this day and age, probably even harder in this day and age, but very hard then too. So I mean, how do you break someone out of a place completely packed with police and law enforcement and guards and guns and fences and whatnot? So
right,
good luck to them.
I mean, we've seen better fortified places breached, so it's not impossible for them, but it is going to take a Herculean plan to come up with a way to get him out. Meanwhile, we do see Young June, and he's in line for food, and he tries to eat. It's awful, right? And he's being talked down to, and then another guy sees him and starts talking to him. He recognizes him.
Yeah, and Young June says, "Do I know you?" And it appears at this moment that he doesn't know him, and they're talking, and he's kind of friendly, and basically he says, "Why don't you?" It ends up with him saying, "Why don't you?" He lays out this story a little bit, and he says, "We over here, we got cigarettes, and we got, I think he said better food."
Right.
Maybe.
Right. Well, let me backtrack for a second. He first tells him, "Do I know?" When he says, "Do I know you, Young June?" He says, "No, but I know you. How could I not know the head of the top Hopway Tong?" And Young June's like, hey, keep that quiet, right? Because he doesn't want any extra attention from the bulls on him. But then he's like, all right, sit down. You can call me Young June. And now they're just kind of having that chat, which you just alluded to, where the guy now invites him to join him. So Young June, a little strength in numbers here, and now he's not just a loner in a sea of deportees or eventual deportees, right?
Yeah, and so we see that Young June is forming a bit of a bond here.
Right. They go inside. He takes them into their little camp that they got set up there in the deportation center. They got cigarettes, but nobody's got a lighter, right? Young Jun does make a point a couple moments earlier to say that he expects that the Hopway is making a plan to bust him out, that they'll tear the place down if they have to. But now he's having his cigarette over there and he's with his new friends, but it looks like it's a setup after all, Mike.
Right. The camera kind of tightens up on Young Jun, which to me instinctively is like, I got the sense, okay, something's about to go down. I got quiet. The camera's really tight on him. And then we realize it's a setup, and the young man, I think his name is Si Cheng.
Right.
It turns out that he did have some more familiarity with Young Jun than he let on. Young Jun apparently had his father beat up because he was a shop. Well, not too dissimilar from the printer.
No, exactly. He's the tailor's son.
Right, the tailor's son. And just like Yan Mei.
They missed a payment.
They missed a payment, and then he begins to relay the stories of all the other men there. I'm guessing there's maybe 5 to 10 guys there. And they're all, like, this guy, you did this to his family, this happened to his family, et cetera, et cetera.
They all got beef.
And they all got beef. And Young Jun is in a bad position. Again, I find it really interesting this episode. We see the two leaders who have, to this point, never really been in a position of vulnerability. And here's Young Jun in about one of the worst spots you could ever be in. Right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And this is where he reaches for his knives behind him, but they're not there because he's already been,
processed
of his weapons. Right. Strip of his weapons. So they fight, and Young Jun does not have any weapons, and he starts out pretty good, Young Jun, against these guys.
Yeah, he's holding his own. He's grabbing the weapons available to him in the moment. I think he grabs a chair at one point, then he steals another guy's weapon and
starts swinging around a bed frame. I mean, he's got whatever he can get his hands on.
Yeah, he's holding his own for the moment. But much like in real life, if you're surrounded by a bunch of guys, eventually they're gonna. He
ends up getting clobbered pretty good, actually. And then all of a sudden, like, it busts open. That word must have got out. Something's going down in there, because in busting the bulls to break up whatever fracas is still lingering there, as Young Jun gets busted in the face, so he's already like out cold when the bulls come in to break up.
Yeah, and the thing is that I love karate movies like you do too, but one of my criticisms about them is that, okay, you got a guy in a room facing like 12 guys, right? And he just takes them all, because they'll just come at him one-on-one. We know in real life, those 12 guys would just all rush in, crush him, and just pin him down and just stomp him.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care how much martial arts or boxing skills you have. If you're in a room surrounded by
you're going to end up more like War Chief in the Warriors, getting surrounded and beat down by the other gang members, than you are like a video game karate champ, one at a time, coming at you.
There's a deep cuts reference, my friend.
Yeah, you like that. That's a good one.
Deep cuts.
We're back in Chinatown now, and it is Lee Young, and he's having a conversation with the drunken Pinkerton. If you remember him, he's the guy that has the photograph of Buckley and in the Confederate uniform. And the whole conversation here is about springing Mei Ling.
Yeah.
And he hands the Pinkerton pretty good wad of cash, it looks like.
And we see that Lee Young is prepared to go over the head of the rest of the time. He's prepared to go around him. Again, thinking with his heart. Or is he? Maybe he's not. Right now, I'm thinking that he is just going with his heart. But, we see that Lee Young is determined to get her out.
He is. Get her out is exactly what he says to her. To him, as a matter of fact, and the scene ends there. We're now in the print shop, Mike, and we see Special Agent Mosely and new Special Agent Lee doing some questioning, because they're hot on the trail of this counterfeiting operation, and they're pretty sure they've narrowed it down pretty accurately.
Yeah, and Mosley's just kind of in the background. He's just sort of messing up the place, and Lee is. And Lee is being Lee. He's asking questions, and he's asking good questions. And he seems a little troubled by, kind of not too dissimilar how Hara reacts to Atwood. He doesn't kind of necessarily like the way he's acting. We see that Yan Mi's father is in a bit of distress.
He's kind of sick or whatever, the old man.
Yeah.
And she they question her, and she's very defensive of her old man, of the old man, and she even says, you make him sicker. Right. She says something like that, like this is all making them sicker. So, she explains as best as she can in her English, no, only print paper, no money, something like that. She says, and they buy her story. I wrote a question mark though. And they leave because he says something like, I think we're barking up the wrong tree here, Lee says to Mosely, and Mosely says, I'm inclined to believe you or agree with you. And they leave. But does that mean they buy the story right now, Mike?
I wasn't sure what to make of that. There was part of me that was inclined to believe that they believed it, but I now see your point of view.
Yeah.
On the one hand, as far as we know as viewers, that's the only print shop in the area.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're looking for counterfeiters in this area and there's only one print shop, I mean,
and it's in the area where all the fake chops been mostly found. So I'm not sure what their game is there, but I'm not so certain that they bought it for the moment, right? I think that they got what they needed for now, and I'm not sure what that was, but we're gonna find out. All right, we now move along to Miss Archer and Buckley, or Walter, as we now know him as, and he is troubled. His campaign is faltering. He knows it. He feels it, and Thayer has overtaken him in the court of public opinion. But she wants to help.
Yeah, well, Thayer is obviously a more seasoned politician. He got ahead of the story, as it were, about his brother. But Miss Archer, and Miss Archer seems to believe in Buckley, Walter,
yes,
as we now know him. But again, he has he lacks that sort of X factor, and he points it out to her. He says that he's a better behind the scenes guy, which is what we've been saying, right? And he certainly is. He's more of a puppet master than a puppet. He kind of says what we've all known is that a guy like the former mayor Blake was just kind of an idiot adult that he led around by the leash, and now here it is.
He even says he always viewed the man in front to be the puppet, but she says to him, and I love the phrase, "You're much more than some blowhard's fixer." Pretty cool. And then this is where she leans in for a kiss, and Buckley, I don't know, he kind of doesn't have any kind of reaction, Mike.
He's like, really? Because I thought that he was maybe he did have a reaction, but that one was kind of troubling him, or I'm trying to look for lack of a better word, say troubling him, because he did have a reaction, but he's not used to this reaction. And
maybe we didn't see the reaction, if you know what I'm saying.
Bouching, wow.
But he does also admit that he has not had much action lately either.
Right.
So that explains his nerves and his, I don't know if you want to call that reaction a reaction. It was very, it wasn't the kind of reaction that if I'm Miss Archer, I'm saying, oh boy, he wants me right back. Right. But apparently he does, because it's a Buckley kissing scene, and I didn't like it.
This is like our first time seeing an intimate scene with him, and I wasn't.
Yeah, it's so out of character. It's not even like, oh, cool, right? Where you see other characters eventually get it on later on in a show, and you're kind of looking forward to it finally happening. This was not one I was anticipating with any kind of fervor.
Yeah, and I couldn't say that I would have predicted this either, to be honest with you.
Yeah. The other thing, as they go into their, I'm going to call it the Buckley sex scene. The music is like kind of like a new rock porno kind of style music too. Go back and listen to it as the scene closes out. It's not your normal music for the show. All right, so we'll leave Buckley and Miss Archer in the throes of, I don't know, ecstasy, I suppose. And now we got Assam and Yan Mi, and they're discussing the fact that the Secret Service is breathing down her neck.
Yeah, and I kind of like last week, just before their big, speaking of love scenes, kind of just before their big love scene, where she was like, she wasn't comfortable with this, and again, it's pretty much more the same like it was last week. Only this doesn't end in a kiss. This ends more and she just kind of
she tells him, you need to move these plates. No other way about it, matter of factly. And he says, I'm working on it. And he reassures her, but she is not reassured, Mike.
No,
not at all.
And considering what we learned last week, she was actually taking money. We're not even 100%, at least I'm not 100% sure how she feels about Assam, actually, to be honest with you.
Right. Right. It's true. Even though they fooled around and they did what they did, and she's working closely with him, she's a pretty independent person. So we'll see how that all plays out. All right, we're back now. It's Buckley. He's lording over Mei Ling now in a very arrogant fashion. And I wrote in parentheses, is he buzzing from having gotten laid? Feeling very powerful, Mike?
He got a little rush.
It's a little bit of a different Buckley here in the conversation tone.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a rush. So that's good for him.
But the end result here is that he does get paid to get her out. But he also feels like her usefulness to him has expired. But she counters.
Yeah, she explains that she still has something to offer.
Right.
Because he's like, he goes, let me guess. He was actually trying to guess. And then she tries to use some leverage on him. And he says that he doesn't appreciate being blackmailed.
Right. The head blackmailer of the show doesn't appreciate being tasting medicine. It's amazing when a tables got turned on him.
Yeah. But in the end, she lays out her case, which I forget the exact circumstances of how she laid it out.
Well, what it was that, the chaos that's coming to Chinatown is in Buckley's favor, as he puts it. And she says, it's not going to be chaos. It's going to be war, which is not in your favor. And that's when Buckley pauses and says, oh, you can prevent this war? She says, I can prevent it. And then I'm going to crush the Hop Way. And then you're going to benefit from all the extra spoils I'm going to have to pay you. So she turns it around and makes it into still a mutually beneficial arrangement. And you wonder, she's just getting sprung from jail and she's still putting herself or positioning herself in a place of being able to dictate terms. Although for me, this felt like a Hail Mary pass.
Yeah, it could very well be.
That is where we leave those two. Now we're back to Assam and Hong. And they've got themselves looks like a deportation officer, and they're beating him up for information.
I had a little bit of a problem with this scene because this is the first time that I can remember that we see Assam involved in sort of torturing someone who's kind of innocent. I mean, he's a guard. I mean, he may not be a nice guy, but we don't know him from Adam. So this is like, I actually saw a recent, saw that program about The Sopranos, the documentary.
Yes, I did as well. It was fantastic.
Right. I agree. But they kind of laid out how you got to like these characters, but every once in a while they show them doing something heinous. Like to let you know, you may like Tony Soprano, but he's capable of extreme violence and terrible acts.
Yeah, he's an anti-hero and we loved him.
Yeah. And I got sort of a similar vibe here. And this might have arguably even been worse because, again, we don't know this guard from Adam. He might have been a nice guy, might have been a family, and we don't know anything about him, but they're torturing this guy.
The way I figured is that this is a guy that's already on the Hopway payroll, and they had easy access to getting him. Otherwise, how else would they be able to grab a guy, have him, tie him up, beat the shit out of him, and then try to get info and actually get some info from him, or do they? Because it ends up with Hong strangling him. I didn't have a problem with the scene. I felt like it was on brand. They are gangsters and they need information. So they were, a half a step away from going Mr. Blonde on this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We now move on. It's a Chinatown raid, Mike. Children are being separated from their parents. There's cops everywhere. It's a chaotic scene. And this is where Bill has had enough and he stands up to Atwood because Bill is a family man. He tries to be a good guy and he doesn't like what he sees. And he finally opens his mouth directly.
Yeah, we've kind of seen sort of the full evolution of the O'Hara character, right? Because I would say that probably season 1, episode 1, he might have been the one doing the separating.
Right.
But here he is after a couple of seasons. He's been in Chinatown. He's got to know these people, got to know in some cases their families maybe. And he doesn't like what he sees. He sees women being, literally, he saw a mother being separated from her child and he reunited them, right? We saw that.
Yeah.
So to me, this scene speaks to his evolution as a character.
What happens to these children? And Atwood's answer was they'll be placed in a good Christian orphanage because we all know how wonderful those were in 1880. And then Bill's answer was, we didn't sign up for this shit. Well, maybe you're not cut out to be a police officer anymore or whatever, Sergeant. And that's when Bill quits on the spot, doesn't he?
He does.
Drops his badge, his piece of tin right onto the ground.
Yeah. Yeah,
Big
basically
turning point for Bill. Big turning point for Bill.
the proverbial, we see in the cliche of the cop slamming his gun and badge down on the desk. Where this was but it was he slammed it on the ground. So it was a bit of a cliche, but I liked it.
We now move back to young June. He is licking his wounds from the beatdown that he took. And who should he run into but Father June?
Father June.
We haven't seen him in several episodes, and he has a wisecrack for him, as usual, still picking fights. You can't win, I see, something. And then they have a talk about, everything that's going on, printing chop and so on.
Yeah, it was nice to see Father June again. And, of course, friend of the show. Obviously, so that was pretty cool. Perry Young, cool to see him again. And I wasn't sure we'd get to see him after the end of season 2, but here he is, pops up out of nowhere, out of left field.
Yeah, you're right, because there's been not even a peep of his name really during these last 4 episodes, and now here he is in the flesh, and he's telling young June, "Wow, printing your own chop, kind of a ballsy move there." And then we get his backstory. How did he end up in the deportation center? And, it's kind of a rough tale.
Yeah, he went out east. I think he said that he went to New York.
North, he went.
Oh, he went north. Okay.
He didn't say where exactly. When he said I went north, I envisioned Minneapolis for some reason, Minnesota.
Well, it is north of San Francisco.
Duluth.
Well, again, sort of, and this just occurred to me. We saw another example of a Tong leader, in this case, a former Tong leader. He went elsewhere and he kind of got rounded up. It found out his power didn't extend beyond Chinatown, which he says himself. He says, and I think it's in this scene, that our power outside of China doesn't mean shit outside of Chinatown.
Right. He joined up with some Chinese ranchers that he ran into, and they seem to have a little good thing going for a bit, but a duck mob pretty much ran them out. You can imagine there's a lot of fighting and death there. But the scene closes with Father June saying, "Despite all that, I am happy to see you." So that's kind of cool that they're, got a little bit of a, they're both just 2 Chinamen in a deportation center. Like you said, there's no former Tong leader. There's no current Tong leader. We're just 2 numbers waiting to get on a ship. Meanwhile, we've got Hong and Assam trying to scheme their way in. They're still working on springing this guy, young June. Hong wants to hammer them, go in guns blazing, while Assam is trying to, I don't know, Mike, preach a little bit of prudence.
Yeah, the voice of reason.
Trying to be.
We also see the guard ended up dead.
Right. So, yeah. Hong wasn't going to let him go. Yeah,
which again, it still troubles me a little bit, but I'll choose to believe your theory that he was a guard that was already on the take, and maybe,
maybe if we went back and looked a little closer, Mike, at some previous episodes, we might even see him as a peripheral doing something indicating he was on the take. I'd have to really go back and look at that, but it is entirely possible. He wasn't just a rando that they put in that scene to, he wasn't a red shirt, so to speak. In comes Chow as Hong and Assam are planning, and they talk about, he brings in the news about Mei Ling getting out. That's not good news for them.
No. Again, Chow, he's the voice of reason, as it were. And he also explains to them that Happy Jack might not be very enchanted with them, right?
Yeah, they have another, in addition to Mei Ling getting out of jail, that's one problem. They've got a second problem. Happy Jack knows about the fake chop, and we know Happy Jack.
Which again goes back to when we discussed that episode where they first paid off Happy Jack, because I think we discussed whether they should have let him in on it, right? Because in some cases, counterfeit money can be just as good as real money, right? Maybe they could have said to him, here you go. But now that I think about it, I think this might have been a little short-sighted on their part, right? Because they gave him this fake chop, right? And so now, if he gets caught distributing it, or he's spending it or whatever, he could get in trouble, right? Anyone who's handled counterfeit money, even if it's unwittingly, you could have some problems.
Right. You ever come across counterfeit money?
Not that I know of.
So I'll tell you a quick story. When I was, in my late teens, early 20s, I worked on my father's food truck, and it was all cash. We didn't have debit cards and, payment processing back then, all cash. And so we would, at the end of the week, bring the cash to the bank and make our deposits. So that was my chore. And I went one week and I make the deposit, and they're doing the counting, and the machine's counting the money. It was the same lady every week. So we knew each other, over there at the bank. And she's like, "Oh, we got a fake one." And she goes, "Here you go. You can have this one back." And I'm like, "What is this?" And she goes, "You got a counterfeit 10 there." I'm like, "Oh, wow." And I looked at it, and you could see that it looked great. It looked like a real 10, except this, you know how there's a serial number on one side and a serial number on the other side? It was two different serial numbers.
Oh wow, amazing!
Yeah.
She caught that, but she
Yeah.
actually gave it back to you.
She gave it back to me. I used it to buy gas.
I'm
right,
surprised they didn't confiscate that. Actually,
Yeah, I'm surprised thinking about it now. I'm surprised she didn't just keep it to destroy it. She actually gave it back to me. Crazy, right? This was also, we're talking about 1988, 1989. Things were just a lot different back then, I suppose. It was clear that I wasn't a counterfeiter. Every other bill was real. So I guess, but here's where Chow says that he may have a way to help them out of the scene. Right. And he says, "I have a proposal. Let me take it to Jack." We don't know what that is, but we're going to find out.
Chow always has a plan.
Chow always has something cooking, right? And it's always I think with like everyone in this show, it's always rooted in self-preservation first, money second, or maybe 1 and 1A ordered depending on the situation. All right. We now see Mei Ling and Lee Yang. They embrace. It's a big scene for them, right? He sprung her from jail, and she is grateful. But he says to her straight up, the council has a meeting tomorrow, and they have lost faith in you. They wanted to leave you inside.
Yeah, and I think the scene also kind of was also his way of saying, hey, why are you acting out on your own? Why aren't we talking? Basically,
right.
This is 19th century gangster speak for, hey, we don't talk anymore. And he even says to her, he goes, "I can't protect you if you don't let me know what you're doing."
Yeah, and this is where she essentially swears to him that she won't leave him in the dark anymore. And then he asks about the money. "Can we get it back?" "It's gone," she said. "It's gone." So not only did Bernard and Eliza have her thrown in jail, but Bernard's keeping that money. And that goes back, Mike, to her amateur hour mistake of dropping 2 big rolls of cash on a table to a guy whose business never deals in cash. Brokers didn't deal in cash in those days. I mean, they definitely had banks to move money around with. So, that now makes me wonder, was there a bigger scheme? Like once she dropped that money on the table and he saw the opportunity, he could just keep it. Was all this now tied in to get her thrown in jail? I know he was covering his butt when he made a move on her, but.
Well, let's say hypothetically, when he hit on her, that she accepted and she was like, "Hey, yeah," then they would have had a relationship and he would have had to at some point show her a return on her profit, so to speak. So I would say that no, there probably wasn't a larger plan until this happened. I think
get himself out of his jam that he put himself in.
Unless, that's my theory anyway.
I mean, you're right.
Because once he established a physical relationship with her, he was going to have to show something for it.
Right. There's going to have to be a profit and loss ledger somewhere.
Quid pro quo. Yep.
Yeah. Had they commenced in a physical as well as a financial relationship. Now we see Chow off to go see Jack, trying to make good. And his second motive is to get Jack to kill Agent Lee, who he knows Jack does not have much fondness for.
And this was kind of like the scene with Assam and Hong with Lee's guard. It kind of troubled me because this is the first time we see that I can think of. Again, I say that, but Hong ordering the hit of a character that we like.
Right.
And we know that Hong and Lee have had a history, and Hong is not. I'm sorry, Chow and Lee have a history, and not necessarily a friend. I wouldn't even say a friendship, but this just bothered me a little bit because it's like, okay, we like Lee, and he's trying to have him killed. I didn't like that.
We like Lee and we like Chow.
Yeah.
And I can see where Chow's coming from. Lee's breathing down on their tail. Like you said last week, Chow's almost the mastermind of this whole counterfeiting scheme. So he stands to lose a lot, as much as anybody else who's a stakeholder in this scheme. But this is where Jack kind of tries to turn the tables on Chow. Chow gave him money, extra money on top of it. We good now, and this is where Happy Jack says, "I don't need to kill Lee to get paid. And he unveils the reward poster, the wanted poster, which technically is still in effect because Lee has not been absolved through Mosely's channels, right? That was the caveat to joining to begin with. Make your Georgia problem go away. That problem hasn't gone away yet officially. So Jack says that I don't need to kill him, and I'm keeping this money. Call it a service fee. To allow you to keep breathing. Oh man, it's great.
I wish we saw more of Happy Jack. I like him.
Yeah, it's a great exchange. He's awesome. He's always saying something tongue in cheek while he is threatening you. I've never been amused by someone who's so threatening as much as I am by Happy Jack's way with words, right?
So I appreciate about this show. Very tongue in cheek. There's a lot of characters that have a sense of humor that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, absolutely. We now see the aforementioned officer or special agent Lee, and he goes to Bill's house. Guess word got around that Bill quit the force.
Yeah, and O'Hara is surprised to see Lee. Lee surprises him by being in his home, and he got scared, and Lee says, "Oh, I was just wondering how you live in a mess like this." Or,
yeah, what a mess the house was, right?
Yeah, I guess he never really had a chance to clean up after the tongue.
he reminded me of that scene where Marge left Homer Simpson, and like 8 hours later, he was already dirty and filthy, and he was like, "By the end of tonight, I'll be dead." Like that's where I kind of saw Bill as like kind of very pathetic in a sense, where he's so forlorn at this point where he can't even wash a dish. And I think he says something about the dishes being piled up.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, Bill says three things. He says, one, I got no job, no family, and no fucking purpose. And you're right. He says four things. The game is rigged. Lee's got a bright side for him, as he always does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He says, Lucy always wanted you out of Chinatown.
There you go.
And so the scene ends there. So, that reminds you, what's Bill going to do next, right? His wife wanted him out of Chinatown. That brother-in-law of his made him that offer a while back. And Bill was like, no way. Lucy put you up to this kind of thing. So we'll see what happens there. I think we're getting a sense of what direction Bill's arc is going to go. Father June and Young June. They're in that camp, the deportation camp, and they have a funny line here. Young June says, I liked being boss better. And Father June says, so did I, as they're being, walking around the camp there. And then they see the ship in the distance.
No, wait. Actually, before we move on, do you think, this occurred to me, do you think that maybe when Father June said that, what he meant was that I like being boss too until you took it from me?
Absolutely. That's what he meant.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't just a empathetic, yeah, me too. It was a so did I, like sarcasm tinged as well, no question, because he's talking to the cause of why he's not the Tong leader anymore, and it's his own son. This is where, when they see the ship that's going to take them away, in the distance there, they discuss what's in store for them in China when they get back there, and it's not anything good, is it?
No. He said basically a quick death will be killed by vendettas or the government, or slow death from disease and or famine. And we know that China had historically had issues with famine, and a lot of people died of that, actually. So
yeah, so a painful quick death or a painful long death. Neither one sounds palatable to either of these guys. So they decide they're going to make a break for it.
Yeah.
And go out strong was the phrase they used.
Yeah.
I see Father June has some knives as well. He must have procured them somewhere in there, because he shows them inside his jacket to Young June.
Yeah, I'd have to do a Google search for the history of prison knives and skivs or shivs, as they were. You see these guys in jail, they're making weapons out of toothbrushes and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. Finally whittled to a sharp edge. Well, Father June's got some of that action going, so he does have some connections still, apparently. Mei Ling now, back to her, and she is being met by Assam. She's praying to the Buddha, I think, is what's going on there. I see a lot of smoke. She's kneeling. She's being guarded from behind. Assam comes to see her, and she allows him to come forth, and he's a little sarcastic.
I was about to say, this is one of my favorite lines of the show. He goes, "So how was jail?"
I didn't care for it, so I left, she says. She's like just as sarcastic, and makes it, she really makes it sound like she controlled that getting out of jail narrative. Like she just walked out on her own accord. And from his perception, that's exactly what it looks like. And he says so.
Yeah, because he has questions, and he also has a request, right?
Yeah. Well, he talks about her connections first, because he says, man, he goes, I got thrown in jail and I needed to come to you. You get thrown in jail and you're right back on the street. I gotta know who you know. He does also tell her that he's glad she got out, and she thanks him for that. So there's that little tiny moment in this, tense situation where they show their humanity for each other. Yeah, deepest feelings for each other. But like you said, now he's got a favor, doesn't he?
Yeah, and we know what he's going to ask her, right? There's only one thing in this episode he wants, and he's trying to get young June out, and he tries to bribe her, but again, she's always the smartest, or usually the smartest person in the room. And she goes, she knows that some of it's counterfeit, and she sets it on fire. She goes, "Don't worry, I'm sure you can make more."
Well, yeah, I mean, you just skip past the important part, which is she says he wants help in getting young June out, and she says, "Why would I do that?" And he says, "I give you 1,000 reasons," and gives her some cash, which she then throws right on a fire. Assam's like, "What are you doing?" But she says, "Take it easy. I know that it's fake."
She says, "I know you can make more."
Yeah, you can make more. There it is. So their little secret is not a secret. Seems like the only ones that don't know right now are Mosely and Lee.
And they're pretty close.
And they're really hot on the trail, right? But now Mei Ling lays it out. $1,000 a fake chop ain't going to do the trick to spring young June, is it, Mike?
No, she tells me exactly what she wants to consider it. She wants 50%.
Half of all their business, and they become partners so they can continue printing. So now she's muscling in on the, it's bad enough she's muscling in on the opium action. Now she wants to muscle in on their printing action.
Right. And she goes, for lack of a better term, she'll give them a safe space to print.
Right. She's going to give them the space to print. And she says, or they could take their chances in China. And scene. I mean, that's a great ending, and pretty much sums it up with what the situation is for him. Man. So now we see Lucy and Bill. They're having a dinner. It looks like an oceanside table, and Bill is all dressed up, looking his finest. And Lucy's dressed up too.
Yeah, and we see that we know that he's wanted his family back, and we know, we can sense that Lucy still loves Bill. That hasn't changed. You can love someone and not be able to be with them, and I think that's been Lucy's position. She loves Bill. There's never been a doubt about that. But
yeah,
this scene is relatively quick, but we had a happy ending in this scene, right?
Yeah, he talks about being a better man, trying to become a better man. And then he says, whatever it takes, I want you back. I'll even work for Horace, the brother-in-law. There you go. So that question we were wondering just a minute ago. And this is where she gets up, and you're not really sure for a second what's going to happen. He tells her he quit the force. She gets up, she kisses him. And then when she's done kissing him, she asks him a funny question.
It was like, what are we going to do for money or something like that?
No, she says, did you quit or were you fired?
Oh, right. Yeah.
And his answer is great. That's open for debate. And they're back, and that is the happy ending to the scene. Lucy and Bill are back. So, yes, she says yes.
A little bit of a bright spot in this episode.
A little bit that was the bright side that Lee painted for him in their last conversation together. So it did come to fruition. We now see Nellie. We haven't seen her in a little while, and she is tending to the girls. She even gives a gift to Lai. And here comes Atoy. And Atoy senses that Lai is angry with her.
Yeah. Lai's being a little abrupt. I think was she practicing with her weapon? Or she had a weapon in the scene, right?
Yeah, she did. But this was where essentially she's blaming Atoy for the whole Strickland scene.
Yeah.
Is it because they did continue to fight back and let them leave? Is that why Lai is pissed?
I don't know if we got specific. Well, Atoy lays it out actually in a couple of minutes when she's speaking to Nellie, and she said that Atoy or Lai rather is upset for giving them hope. They gave them hope.
Right, because now they lost that wonderful scene they had up in Sonoma, and they're back in Chinatown where it all is crappy, and it doesn't seem like there's any hope again. So she's mad that there's no hope. That's a good point, right?
And let me tie this into something else, because I try to tie in references to other movies and TV, but in The Dark Knight Rises, remember the part where Bane had Batman in the prison with the hole, and Bane's explaining, the hole, the thing that Batman had to climb out of to get out of there, Bruce Wayne. It showed the sky. It showed them the outside world. And he goes, there's a reason that this prison is the worst hell on earth. Hope. Because you have hope, you can leave, but it's hope you'll never achieve. And that made me
same.
So they had hope, that Lai had hope that she could have a better life, but it wasn't possible.
This is where Atoy asks, so what happened in court? I lost the land.
Yeah.
So this is where she says, but hope, I found more land, a nice piece of land. We could do this all over again. Atoy's not so optimistic, though.
No, and this actually kind of annoyed me, which I understand for dramatic purposes why they went this route, but really in my head, in real life, if I knew this woman, if this is real life, I would have said to her, why in the hell didn't you just take the offer in the beginning? It would have been so much easier.
Well, she said it. I don't make the same mistake twice. And that's, what are you saying? Nellie says, we're done. Don't come here anymore. And that's that. And now you can see Nellie's emotional and hurt. And we leave the scene with her in tears because Atoy's essentially broken up with her. She says, I'm not going to help you anymore. I'm not coming to north of Sonoma with you, wherever this other piece of land is. And that's the end of their relationship for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see one relationship, O'Hara and his wife get back together. And then we see, again, the show, they sort of have these scenes that sort of parallel each other, right? We see that again.
They juxtapose very well, the writers do in this show, and they string the editing strings the scenes together very nicely. You're absolutely right, Mike. And we're now the deportees being herded to the ship. This is the moment of truth for young June and Father June as they make their plan on when to strike. They ready their blades, Mike. It's feel it. It's on.
Their ships.
They got the blades ready. The scene is tense, and then the tension is broken by. In comes Mei Ling's Pinkerton.
Yes,
it's crazy. He's got like I don't know, piece of paper that says he can get young June out, essentially, and he goes and he finds him. This is where young June springs a twist that the Pinkerton didn't see coming, though.
Yeah, he wants his father out too. Understandable.
Yeah, he comes too. Pinkerton's like, how the hell am I going to walk out of here with two of you?
And then he says, make a new deal.
Make a new deal. That wasn't the deal. Make a new deal. Right. Pretty cool scene, which Mike, basically that says that Assam and Mei Ling's deal is done.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That also lets us know
that's really what you really gain from that, and that they get out of the deportation center without any bloodshed or any other reason to make the bulls come down on Chinatown again. No. Now we see Lai again. She's training, right? She's swinging. This is where she's swinging the sword around, and she is swinging angry, Mike. He's swinging it angry.
Yeah, this was the scene I was thinking of.
Yeah, this is what you were talking about.
Yeah, Atoy walks in and she interrupts her and she says that she's not ready yet.
Yeah, she talks about vengeance, though. Atoy talks about future vengeance and says not ready yet, meaning they need time to heal, right? They've gone through a lot emotionally, psychologically, physically. And I think that's another reason why Atoy told Nellie, no, not right now.
Right.
I need to pull back from all this. It's just been too much. And I still have this business to run over here in Chinatown. Right. So I think Atoy just needs to clear her head. And I think she realizes so does Lai. Yeah. Back to Chinatown. Young June is back. Yeah, I like what he says. I'm still the prettiest motherfucker in Chinatown.
He has some of the best lines.
He really, really does. And he asks, how'd you pull it off?
Yeah.
They don't really answer him on the spot right there, though, do they?
No. You deal. Assam is waiting for a quieter moment to fill him
Yeah.
in.
Father June shows up. He thanks them as well for springing him. And this is where we get now the title of the show, title of the
Yeah,
episode, where young June shouts it out there.
you know, it's time for sticky or whiskey, sticky, and the rest can wait.
Yeah, whiskey and sticky, all the rest can wait. And scene and the party is on, right?
Yeah.
All right, now we're back. This is a good one. Lee Young, Mei Ling, and Lee Young and Mei Ling. He confronts her about this new deal because she just swore to him a scene back together that she wasn't going to make any more deals without him knowing.
Right.
But here she just cut one with Assam.
Yeah, and we can see like this has been sort of the ongoing storyline with them over basically the last season and a half. That she's in charge and she's not necessarily filling him in on everything. And just we saw in the previous scene with him that he can't protect her if he doesn't know what's going on. He's upset, and then I think this speaks more to about their personal relationship than really the relationship about the tongue. You're not talking to me, right? And that's one of the number one big problems in relationships is people not communicating.
Right.
So this is a 19th century gangster way of saying our relationship isn't working.
Yeah, but then this is where she starts talking about things like trust and love. And she essentially proposes to Lee Young.
She does.
We should get married. It's time. And don't you think so? And he nods his head yes, but it's not a convincing yes. I feel like he accepted this proposal begrudgingly.
I think that this says that Lee Young is having doubts about her and their relationship in general and specific. Like he's maybe saying to himself, I don't really know her as well as I thought I did.
Yeah. But yet he allows himself to be bamboozled into accepting a proposal. Yeah. And we leave them back to the Hopway party. They are celebrating. And now young June asks the question, but he already knew the answer.
Yeah. Yes. How did they manage to get him out of jail?
Yeah. You made a deal with Mei Ling.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
You know what? Can I just backtrack a little bit though? Because back to the scene where we were asking about how the Pinkerton, how he was going to do it. They never did explain how we actually got Father June out. I would have liked to have known that.
Oh, right. That's true. That's a good point. But obviously, the Pinkerton had enough sway with Mei Ling's juice and her connections to make that happen. I guess maybe that wasn't so important to the tale here, right? But now we've got young June with the knowledge that they cut a deal with Mei Ling, and Assam explains it was the only move that I had. But this is where they argue.
Yeah, and I thought Assam actually made a very good point. He goes, this wasn't my deal. This was your deal because you're the one that started spreading all that chop around.
Yeah, not only that, but you're also the one who got into it with the chief of police when he came into yours. So you put yourself in this mess. This is on you. I like the way he spins it.
Yeah, and he says the easiest thing to do. He said the easiest thing to do would have been to just leave you there.
Yeah, he says I could have just let you go to China and take over. And that's an excellent point. And it was the only move he had to get him out. I think that the busting in and tearing the place down plan was never going to be the right move. And they knew that already. So this diplomatic release, if you will, was the only chance to get him out. And it was very, very costly. I mean, man, you're trading one guy for half your business. Would Father June have done the same?
He probably wouldn't have done that for young June.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly right. He would have let him stay in jail just as he would have let Assam stay in jail back in season 1. Now Lee is on his way to go see Chow. Mosely's with him, but Mosely decides he's going to sit back because, as Lee explains, at least I know this guy a little bit. So Lee walks in to see Chow. Doesn't Lee say something funny to him like you really should lock your doors? And Chow says, why? Chow is friend to everyone.
Chow's always a wise ass.
Always with a great line. And his distaste for Special Agent Lee it permeates every scene they're in together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I personally love it because of the stuff he says to him. Right. So now Lee's looking for information, plain and simple, right? But I don't know that Chow really wants to play ball with him.
No. Chow is being a little obtuse. He's not really he's not into it. He's not going to negotiate with Lee in this
Right.
one, and we find out why.
Yeah, because when Lee says, "Give me a name, or you're gonna have problems," that's when Happy Jack's guys show up.
Yeah.
And Lee takes a good whack in the head.
But then we find out their plot twist.
Double setup. Now they turn on Chow.
Yeah.
And Jack is pissed. And he clobbers Chow again as well, rather.
Yeah.
So now Chow is out, and that's where the scene and the episode ends.
No, we at least I assume at this point that he's going to turn over Lee to for the wanted poster. But what is he going to do with Chow? As far as we know, Chow's not wanted, right?
No, but you can get rid of Chow by taking him to a deportation center. Right? Or just kill him at this point. What's another dead Chinaman in this series, right? And to the authorities as well. Someone did him a favor. They didn't have to worry about it. So it's all the intrigue just got raised, right? So like if you summarize what's going on here, right? You got Nellie and Atoy are done. You got Bill and Lucy are back, but Bill and the police force are no longer together. So Bill and Officer or Special Agent Lee, neither one's on the force now. So that's kind of interesting. And then you got Mei Ling and Lee Young about to get married. She's gotten out of jail. Buckley's got a girlfriend. He's trying to turn up the political heat to overtake his opponent in the race. There's a lot of stuff happening here, Mike, that how are they going to resolve in 5 episodes?
I can't wait to find out.
You know, it's great. This is only my second. This is my first rewatch of season 3. So I watched season 3 last summer when it came out, and we were already doing this podcast at that time. So I have not gotten around to watching those episodes a second time. This is my second time. So in many ways, because it's been a year, a lot of this is new to me. Like I couldn't even remember how they got young June and Father June out while I was watching the episode. And I was kind of glad that it felt like a new piece of content to me.
Yeah, it is it's fun. It's just like you're watching it in a way. For me, it seems like watching it the first time.
Yeah, it really is. So I'm looking forward to doing this one again very soon for episode 6. Please like and subscribe to our show, Diced Onion. Tell the world, tell your friends, tell anybody, tell your mom, and just give her the link to like. I don't even care if she listens, Mike, you know? But that is it for this week. Another good job out of you, Mike. You always got some good insights and great parallels with other existing material. Kudos to you. But that's all for this week. Diced Onion, we'll see you next week. Peace.